So in today's class we will be talking about different kinds of psychologists, okay, and we will be talking about how psychology can be applied in our day-to-day life. So in today's class we will be studying about different kinds of psychologists, how their works differ from each other, what are their roles, and how is it different from each other. So first of all, let us look at what a psychologist is. So psychologists help people to cope effectively with their problems in life, and these areas where we help people, these are known as referred to as human service areas. I'm sure that you all have heard about the discipline of social work. So social work is also a field where we help people. So uh, the discipline of social work also comes under human service areas, because we are working for the betterment of people, we are working for the benefit of people. Okay, so now let us look at the different kinds of psychologists. So first is your clinical psychologists. So these are mental health professionals with highly specialized training in the diagnosis and psychological treatment of mental, behavioral and emotional illnesses. Okay. The word diagnosis means the act of saying exactly what illness a person has or what the cause of a problem is. Okay, so basically, your clinical psychologists, they work with severe issues, people who display abnormal behaviors, and they have some kind of mental illness. So they worked with such kind of people. So you can find clinical psychologists in hospital settings, and yes, of course, they work in other organizations as well. So now let us look at who is a counseling psychologist. Okay, so counseling psychologists are similar to clinical psychologists, but again there is a difference. So counseling psychologists also cater to human beings who are going through some emotional turmoil or some other mental issues. um, Maybe they are suffering from stress, anxiety, all these emotional issues. But the thing is that counseling psychologists, they focus on lesser severe issues. Like for example, I told you that clinical psychologists, they work, you can see that they are probably working in hospitals and other settings, but counseling psychologists, they work mostly on daily life issues. Like for example, let us take one example. Okay, like you are having issues with your family and maybe with your studies. So when it comes to these kind of problems, then you are going to go to a counseling psychologist. But if a person is showing a lot of abnormal behaviors and he has to be admitted in the hospital, and you have to know what exactly the problem is, what is the mental illness that the person is suffering from, then you are going to go to a clinical psychologist, and the clinical psychologist is going to make a diagnosis and give therapies. And what is a therapy? A therapy is a treatment, is a process of treatment which is used to treat people with mental issues. So now let us talk about community psychologists. So who are they? So they work and focus on problems related to community mental health. They work for government, agencies and other private organizations. So basically they focus on a collective problem of a particular community. It can be any community of any area, whether it's a rural area or some urban area, but they focus on a problem which um, all all of the member of that particular community is facing. So they can work for government, also they can work for other private agencies as well, and they can also help in formulating policies for these particular communities. While these other two branches of psychology, of clinical psychology and counseling psychology, they focus on individual mental health. These psychologists, community psychologists, they focus on the community mental health, on a collective problem that a particular community is facing. So now let us talk about school psychologists. So I am one of the examples of a school psychologist. So school psychologists are uniquely qualified members of school teams that support students' ability to learn and teachers' ability to teach. They also help students to overcome any emotional issues they are going through, and also help the school in formulating policies. So as a school psychologist, you have to help students with various issues. You have to help teachers also with various issues. For example, suppose you are having some issues regarding your studies, so there also we can provide some kind of help, and not just when it comes to studies, but also we can provide help to students to overcome any kind of emotional issues as well. And we also help the school in formulating policies, because we understand behavior, we understand the background of motives and everything, so we can help the school in formulating policies. And school psychologists have varying roles according to the levels of training. So for example, some school psychologists can administer tests, but other psychologists cannot. So there are other things also, like it depends on the background of their training, what they can do or they cannot do. So now let us talk about organizational psychologists. So as the name itself suggests, these are psychologists who work in different organizations, okay, especially in multinational companies. So in multinational companies and other organizations also, people suffer from a lot of stress. There is work pressure, there is pressure at home, and then of course there is high level of work, so they need motivation as well. So they have to deal effectively with all these issues. So to overcome all these issues faced in the organizations and in their personal lives, they take help from these organizational psychologists. And not only that, these organizational psychologists also provide skill-based training programs. So organizational psychologists are specially trained to solve problems in the workplace and improve the quality of life, increase the productivity of work in organization, and manage things at workplace. So I think by now you have some idea about um, different kinds of work in the field of psychology, different kinds of psychologists, how they work and what are their roles. So I can give you some more examples if you want, but please go through everything properly, and if you have any confusion and queries, we can definitely discuss. So that's all for today's class. Thank you and have a nice day. So we have almost reached the end of the chapter. So in our previous topic, we studied about how psychologists conduct researches, and the results of those psychological researches can be applied in practical field as in our day-to-day life. So psychology offers solutions to a variety of problems, whether it's your personal issues or issues at a social level. We can do some interventions at individual levels in order to make a change. Okay, so now for example, if you take example of issues at an individual level, say a girl, she's always upset or she's always sad because she has an abusive father in the family. Okay, so being in the field of psychology, you will be able to know if this is happening, why is it happening. Maybe there is lack of interaction within the family, maybe they lack proper communication, and being in the field of psychology, you will be able to help uh, the family build that connection, that communication. Okay, but as a student of class 11, it may not be possible for you as of now, but if you um, plan to take psychology in your further studies, then you will know how to do so. Okay, so this is how psychology works at an individual level. Now psychology can also solve issues at a societal level. So how is that possible? See, whatever is happening around us, okay, it happens because of it is a result from our unhealthy thinking, negative attitude towards people, and self and undesirable patterns of behavior. Okay, now let us take an example, recent example of whatever is happening in America. So if you are keeping track of the news, you will know that a black person named George Floyd was killed by some cops in America. Okay, so after that there were massive protests. Okay, all those things are going on. So if we look at this particular problems from psychological perspective, then you will see that this probably is happening. This racial discrimination is the root cause of whatever problems that America is facing. So this is happening because of the negative attitude and undesirable behavior of people towards each other's race. Okay, so if we look from psychological perspective, this will be the reason. So being a psychologist, being in the field of psychology, you can actually do some interventions to modify thinking behavior of people in order to bring the change among people. So psychology not only help you all to provide services to others or to a society or community, but it also helps you to understand yourselves in your day-to-day life. Okay, now for example, if you have low self-esteem, low confidence, or if you cannot take criticisms, all these things comes under psychology. So if you have low confidence or low self-esteem, so if that is happening, then why it is happening, you will be able to analyze yourself better, and this is how you can help yourself. Okay, so in the later chapters or maybe by the end of class 12, you will be able to, actually not by the end of class 12, but in this year only, when you will study later chapters, you will be able to understand yourselves more. So if you are displaying this particular behavior, then why does it happen to you? And when you once realize that, okay, I am displaying this particular behavior because of these reasons, then you will be able to modify your own thinking patterns and your own behavior patterns. Okay, and this is going to help you in your day-to-day life. So that's all for this chapter. If you have any doubts or queries, you can definitely ask, or if you want to express anything, then just feel free to do that. Thank you.